Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined in G+ by Neil, 10th Man, Flatzoid, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello.
Hey, happy Wednesday.
Hola.
Hola. ¿Qué tal? Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curve?
Not from Harbor Island Drive in San Diego.
Well, spheres don't have edges, so they won't be able to have their curve.
Well, if you're going to use a tangent to describe the horizon, you need to have a straight line to the horizon, right?
Yeah, you need the
two-way curve.
You need the horizon to be a tangent point. That's correct. Physical tangent point with a straight line drawn to it. That's right.
Well, you can't refract that.
As soon as you refract it, you've no longer got a tangent. So a tangent's a straight line. Refracted means deviated from straight. The antithesis of a tangent.
So no geometry?
No. If the light to the tangent point is refracted, bent, then you don't have geometry. You can't perform it. You can't derive R values with it because you can't see it. Their response from the globe side. It only exists in the maths. That would be geometry. Earth curve only exists in Earth curve maths. The horizon's not physical.
Well, this is where they say a level is curved.
That's nonsense.
Of course it is. But that's all they got left, right?
What, double-speak nonsense? Violating the law of non-contradiction?
Yep. Double-speak.
And don't forget, they hold each other's hands. And sing Kumbaya.
I mean they held each other's hands. What?
The Globers, they have no argument, so they have to hold each other's hands and sing Kumbaya and claim victory, even though they lost.
I see.
Do you think they need somebody to repeat what their actual claim about the horizon is, or do they know it?
They're caught in a paradox now, so 50%, a bit like with the Coriolis effect. They're going to either 50% of the time tell you that we have a physical geometric sphere edge horizon blocking things in the distance calculable in Earth curve geometry based on an R value they derive from a physical horizon, until you point out that you've got this image, we only need one, it's a black swan, where you demonstrate that the horizon is not physical, is beyond the capabilities of physical geometry, and at that moment they can either decry their own model, say we don't see Earth curve geometry, that would be Earth curve, or they can say yeah we do see it, I just don't have an explanation for why it would be in a different position. Maybe the Earth blew up in size that day, the rock that they claim it is flying through a sky vacuum. So they die by one way or the other. They either die by having no geometry to derive with a refracted horizon, or having to explain something that's unexplainable. That would be the black swan image, because they do claim they've got a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon. They're going to die either way. It doesn't make any difference which.
Don't you find it weird that the horizon should have been 1.22, just like the diffraction limit?
Yeah, that's been covered by a few people mathematically more literate than I. So life is short, and even the other day I got, I think it was like $25 super chat. Who was it from? Oh God, I can't remember who it was from now. Anyone remember who it was from? Flat Earth data.
Was
Sorry,
that-
it was Flat Earth data. So Flat Earth data pointed exactly that out. That in the Rayleigh criterion you've got 1.22. Maybe a coincidence, broken down in terms of Adam's done it as well, comparing perspective with perspective hijacking geometry and how close they are to a distance, to a point. If hijacked perspective is your point, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Perfect, yeah.
Any evidence?
Well, I think that's the.
Go on.
I think that's the biggest tell, because everybody knows perspective. Everyone sees things getting smaller with a distance. The mountain looks smaller than the telephone pole in front of you because it's that much further out there in front of the telephone pole. So everyone knows perspective, but when it comes to this subject, the ballers want to disregard it from every part of their assessment of the horizon and things and earth curve and boats and buildings.
Well, to be fair,
Yes.
a lot of people that have not very good eyesight all their life, they tend to kind of get better at geometry. And then they have trouble really figuring out, like, even understanding perspective because, I don't know, they couldn't see that far, all that. And that just makes it less clear to them, less natural to understand these things also. And then, if they learn a lot about geometry all the time and they drown in it, it's very tough to probably keep it apart for them.
But you don't need to know. But you don't need anything about geometry to know that on the long stretch of a highway, as you're going towards a mountain, it's getting bigger and bigger as you get closer to it. You don't need any geometry for that.
Yeah, the basics of that, you'll get that. Sure, the basics are doable, but the more complexities and diffraction and the Aries disk, that's really complicated for some people because they just don't. They have trouble focusing on actually testing it with their own eyes.
What I realized they can't visualize. They
Right.
literally just pen on paper and that's it to them.
Well, their maths doesn't involve visualization. It turns the view side on, so it's no longer representative of what you actually see. You're looking at the side of your own head and a target that doesn't change size with distance. It has an actual size assigned to it, feet or meters. And if it's a 10-foot wall, it doesn't matter if you draw a line with you on the left-hand side of the page and the target on the right-hand side of the page, marked up as 6 foot and 10 foot for the man and wall respectively. You can draw a line between the two and write the number 1 million on it, and then miles next to it. And say, there you go, line of sight. Because the 10-foot wall is still a 10-foot wall in those maths at 1,000,000 miles. And if you can draw a line between them, it should be visible, right? Well, no, it's beyond the diffraction limit. It's got too small to see. Completely ignored if you turn the view side on and put the side of your own head in the view and keep the target the same size regardless of its distance. That's the biggest tell. The curve maths has targets that don't change with distance. Strictly accurate? Well, yeah, they're always going to be an actual size of 10 foot. But in optical terms, it will reduce with distance. Something completely ignored in curve maths and called, what's it called again? What do they call that effect in curve maths? Oh yeah, earth curve is what they call it in curve maths, by ignoring the fact that things get smaller with distance. That's the diffraction limit. Perspective.
It's actually funny that they want to play with orthographic view and then they want to claim refraction in the same breath.
Yeah, where their refraction is just a mathematical bending of a line they're drawing between target and observer when the target doesn't change in size. Its actual size will always remain the same in those mathematics, so they're just drawing a bent line based on a presupposed spherical line beneath the feet of the observer, and then saying light will bend at that. Well, no, your geometry with a line drawn in maths that doesn't have angles to anything ever, that is what you'll call refraction. Actually, standard, aka terrestrial refraction, 7/6 of a radius value, they can't get. Because they can't derive it, because the horizon's not physical, it's not a tangent point. We wouldn't expect to see the geometric horizon, according to them.
I feel like you may have skipped over that Arwen just called anybody that sees Earth curve blind.
He was actually attacking short-sighted people. So if this, I was going to say as a joke, if the short-sighted people have got a union, don't come to me, go to Arwen.
What the fuck? No, I was just giving an excuse that, hey, for some people it is really tough because they're not so used to basically having a mental viewpoint out of their eyes as much, and rather at looking at paper, looking at screens, because they have less trouble interfacing with that mentally. And so they get so used to that it becomes really easy to reify that, to basically look at anything from that inside perspective instead of actually looking through your eyes, you know?
Yeah, you're comparing what you'd see optically with what you can conceptualize based on things like an orthographic side-on view where you see your side of your own head. So it's the difference between conceptualization and actual optics, reality versus concepts. The globe being a concept, optics and the diffraction limit being our reality.
Yep. So I wasn't attacking them. I was just pointing out there are people that will have more trouble with this than you and me. For example.
Fundies. Yeah, we know.
No, well, they might risk more being stuck in the fundy position because of that, because their senses can't help them figuring it out so much, right? So the obstacle becomes bigger. That's all.
You think it's that, or do you think they're just trying to defend the model so bad that they don't want to see it?
Well, they're religious. They've got a religious faith in this model that they've reified. Arwen's just saying once you get to the point where you're continually conceptualizing stuff and then putting it into your reality, that becomes a habit that's difficult to break when you compare it to actual optics that in their world have only ever been compared to orthographic views and things of that nature. So that it's required that you conceptualize how a model works when comparing it to something optical. Well, that's a conceptualization that doesn't make what you're doing or the maths that you're performing your reality. But if you're stuck in that processing method, you're going to struggle to say, well, this is how optics actually work, because that's actually reality as opposed to models and religion, which is what they exercise, a religious faith in a model.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to attack Arwen. I was trying to make a joke. Sorry.
Well, no.
Nobody thought you were, and we missed the joke if there was one.
Only blind people see Earth curves.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right.
Oh,
and I took it away from the blind bit. Yeah, you're not going to see anything. I get it. Hardy ha. Ha ha ha.
Right, yeah, you can only see the curve in your head. That's what it comes down to.
Okay, we could pull that apart as well, but
That's
we
their
won't.
lenses.
Let's move on. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, Nathan, you shouldn't expect to see drift.
You would if you're claiming there's Coriolis drift.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
Gases are not susceptible to momentum, so they could never, under any circumstance, move in lockstep with any spinning body, no matter how slow. They might get dragged, but they will never reach full rotation, basically. I figured this out.
It's a first law of thermodynamics violation, that assertion, actually. So to assert that, let's say you've got little fins, you count the globe Earth turning conceptually as being capable of dragging the atmosphere along with it as it turns, right? Well, let's pretend that all of the roughness of the ground below, even though it's insignificant by comparison to the magnitude of their sphere, but nevertheless, let's pretend they're like little fins dragging the air along. Well, for that air to be continually going at the same rate as the ground beneath it, as you get higher, the distance that it has to travel increases, so the circumference, the journey, will be greater the higher you go in terms of the gas. Therefore, the velocity of that gas, to keep up with the Earth's spin beneath, would increase. Therefore, a violation of the first law of thermodynamics. So it's absurd. The same applies when they say a helicopter goes up and continues in lockstep. Well, every time it goes up another foot, it's having to traverse a longer distance. Therefore, it's going to have to increase its momentum versus the speed of the claim to be spinning Earth beneath it. Again, a first law of thermodynamics violation. So their absurd notion that flies in the face of having drift, that's things drifting apart from you at 15 degrees an hour. When they have us put it to them that we don't see that, nothing's drifting away from us at 15 degrees an hour, they start to justify a first law of thermodynamics violation with a begging the question fallacy. I.e., I assume Earth spins. I'm not going to demonstrate 15 degrees drift to prove it. I'm going to assume it. And then say the reason we don't see drift is because everything's travelling together, violating the first law of thermodynamics, and not giving us 15 degrees an hour drift. You go into this... go on.
But how they do it is by mistakenly comparing, surprise, surprise, gas to solids and liquids, which are viable to momentum. That means that if in a rotatory situation, whatever it is, how you're going to do it doesn't really matter. Eventually, it will start to lockstep move with the situation. Right? It gets dragged and then it actually starts to, because of the momentum, move with it. Well, gas may get dragged because of the pressure differential that the moving object will cause locally. It will move slightly, but it does not reach a lockstep situation ever because it is not susceptible to momentum. So the loose parts will always just be responding to the pressure differentials and not finding a momentum in order to ever, at any point ever, no matter how long, reach full lockstep motion with the rotating things.
Yeah, you're spot on, but by the same token, you've also got a claim that there's supposed to be things drifting apart as Earth rotates underneath. That's Coriolis drift. And to have to argue with them about how things cannot be in lockstep is to argue with them about their decrying their own claim. So you're arguing with them saying, oh, no, we can't have Earth in lockstep with the atmosphere. It's like, why argue about it? So no drift then from now on. Thanks, Dan. No drift, reference frames ruined, stuff moving together. Well, that doesn't give you 15 degrees an hour drift.
Well, we do have the sun moving at 15 degrees an hour, but what they do is say that that optical visual of the movement is not the sun moving, but the Earth moving that causes that. Well, and you've said, well, great. Well, then if the Earth is rotating underneath the sun, it's got to rotate underneath anything that's not attached to the Earth as well. And this is where the examples of the drone and the helicopters and everything else destroys that the Earth is moving.
Hey, Chris.
Let's all remember our
Hey,
good
Chocolate.
friend Ed told us that the movement of the sun is irrelevant to the rotation of the Earth.
Yeah, they
Thanks,
don't
Ed.
know they don't know when they're claiming Coriolis. You're correct. Hey, Chocolate. Hey, Chris.
Special Ed.
Good morning. What's going on, guys?
Hey, Chocolate.
Hey, Chris. Can we hear you? No sound. No sound. Let's move on with housekeeping.
Oh, wait, Chris Berry.
Yeah, it's just not got his mic sorted. We'll hopefully either drop in or drop out or fix his mic or whatever. But I haven't heard from him.
Yeah, check.
Yeah, there we go.
Can hear you.
We hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Every once in a while, Google resets my mic. I don't get it. But yeah, so I was just listening this morning. I was up a little early. I had to take my kids to school. And I thought I'd share a quick story because ironically, yesterday I was having this exact conversation on Jose's. Now I haven't joined Jose's in at least 3 weeks, maybe a month. I've just been busy with things, right? And there was this new guy on I'd never heard of called Glass Monster. And this guy was talking about how he had built an interferometer ring laser gyro. And I mean, clearly this guy was like intellectually smart, right? Probably like high IQ, a little bit on the autistic spectrum, I could tell. Anyways, long story short, we get to a point where he's saying, look, there's only one way that the interferometer is picking up motion, or like it's designed to pick up motion. So that's what it's got to be, right? Like when you spin it with your hand, it picks up motion. And when you leave it flat, when you leave it on the table, it's picking up 15 degrees of motion. And I said, well, if that's the case, I said, then if you're hovering in a helicopter, you should, experience 15-degree drift. And he said, oh, come on, that's not going to happen because the atmosphere moves with the Earth and it pushes the helicopter along. And I said, so your argument for Earth spin is lack of Coriolis and thus lack of Earth spin.
Wow.
Hold on. What was the response?
They hadn't. I mean, they just keep going back to the ring laser. They say, oh, but the ring laser proves it. We don't need the helicopter. The ring laser proves it. And I kept saying, well, no, then you would experience it in a helicopter or an airplane or a hovering drone. You would experience the drift. And they keep saying, oh, we don't experience drift because the atmosphere pushes it along, which we know is total bullcrap.
Yeah, they want to claim
collective Coriolis effect.
They want to claim
So
Earth.
it proves what he just negated by saying that the atmosphere and Earth are moving together. Wow.
Yeah, single reference frame. So the claim is we've got Coriolis effect. Now it's parroted off by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Earth turns underneath the football. You observe the ball seem to curve through the goal because the goal moved under the ball. That's Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim of Coriolis. Same claim as Earth and Sun and gyroscope. Well, Well, that's a claim of two separate reference frames, one turning underneath the other, and they claim it. We've got a claim that Earth turns under the gyro at 15 degrees an hour. So if Earth turns under the gyro and we've got two separate reference frames, that will cause a ball to drift through a goal, exactly as asserted by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Two reference frames. Let's just drop a quote in at this stage. You and your reference frames have been ruined. End quote. Simon Dan. Now those reference frames, plural, two of them, are required to have drift. That's a helicopter taking off and you turning underneath it. Likewise, comparably, on a roundabout, you have a drone. And you and the drone are spinning around on the roundabout, and then you launch the drone. It's no longer attached to the roundabout, and you seem to go towards it, and then fly, and then move away from it, and then come towards it and move away from it. Why? Well, because you're turning underneath it on the roundabout while it hovers. That's Coriolis effect. You seeming to see it moving when it's actually hovering, because you're turning underneath. It's claimed Earth does that. It's claimed Earth turns under things not attached, like footballs and snipers' bullets, and gyroscopes. So two reference frames, one thing drifting away from the other. Well, that would mean that a helicopter would take off on the equator, and you'd turn underneath it to see it drifting away at 1,000 miles an hour. And obviously this doesn't happen. We point out that we're not turning underneath anything to see anything drift away at 15 degrees an hour, and they say we wouldn't expect to see drift, they're travelling together. Even when they're intellectually, apparently, smart. Well, if you're smart, you appreciate that either we've got Coriolis drift or we haven't. And if you're going to say we've got it in the form of a gyro, a pendulum, and a football, and a sniper's shot, then you've got it in the form of aeroplanes, drones, helicopters, balloons, or anything else that leaves the claim to be spinning reference frame. And we don't see that effect. They only utilise things that are in the air for a couple of seconds, because it would be patently obvious if they used a hot air balloon going up and landing in a different country as Earth turned underneath it, and that would give you the Coriolis effect from the ground they claim we see. That would be things from the ground seeming to move because you're turning underneath them, like the drone on the roundabout. Well, that doesn't happen. It would happen on Earth. You'd launch a drone off Earth, and you'd turn underneath it, like on the roundabout, to have Coriolis drift. And as soon as you point that out, they say, we wouldn't expect drift. What, you wouldn't expect your claim proof of a spinning Earth with 15 degrees an hour drift, Coriolis effect, things drifting away? We wouldn't expect to see that. What's that, Dan? You and your reference frames are ruined because we point out it doesn't happen. Well, we're not claiming any reference frames, but they are. Drift, 15 degrees of it, Earth turning underneath. Just doesn't happen. Anything to add, Chris?
No, I just thought it was funny, right? I mean, because you guys harp on it all the time, and it happened to me like in real life, and it was just funny because I said I hope that the irony isn't being lost on everyone, which I was really speaking towards the app, the ether, so to speak, like the internets and who was listening, not the panel. The panel just they keep saying the same stuff, they repeat, watch, rinse, and repeat, and hope that it sticks. But it's definitely ironic. So that was it.
Yeah,
it's insane how they don't even recognize their own doublespeak, isn't it?
Yeah, they don't recognise it. We've got a drift, 15 degrees, Earth's turning under the gyro. So second reference frame, Earth's turning under the gyro. Right, okay. So Earth's turning underneath drones. No, we wouldn't expect 15 degrees an hour drift. Earth and atmosphere travel together. I assume Earth's travelling, and I've got no proof of it because nothing's drifting. What's wrong with you? Well, you've just said we've got drift. That's Earth turning underneath a gyro or a pendulum or a bullet or a football. That's what it is. It's 15 degrees an hour as stuff drifts away from me. And you're saying I wouldn't expect to see it. Well, it's your bloody claim.
You've just mentioned two projectiles, haven't you, Nathan?
That's correct. They were all projectiles. Everything that's claimed...
No, a helicopter's not a projectile.
Is it not?
No.
What's that got to do with you turning underneath it to see it drift away?
That's all I'm going to say, Nathan.
Sorry, what's this non sequitur got to do with a claim that Earth turns underneath at 15 degrees an hour? That would cause me to observe the helicopter, a projectile, drifting away from me at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. Whether or not you define it as a projectile is a non sequitur to the point of whether or not we see Earth turning underneath it, or whether I get fundy muted when I point out that your non sequitur doesn't overcome the problem of us not seeing anything drifting away from us. Drones don't drift away at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. Neither do bullets or balls or anything else for that matter, because we'd notice, and we don't. Maybe you'd like to use the old globe ed tactic of telling us how we wouldn't expect to see 15 degrees an hour drift because you assume Earth and atmosphere travel together, violating the first law of thermodynamics. Maybe you'd like to go down that road, or just point out that you don't like my word projectile.
I'm not going to comment further.
What, you're not going to debate about Earth not turning underneath drones, not giving us 15 degrees an hour drift? What a shock! You just want to point out that I've used the wrong word? Wow, that's a brilliant win! Sit down, shut up.
It is a win.
Sit down, shut up. You have nothing to offer. You're not defending the claim that Earth turns underneath at 15 degrees an hour, causing drones to fly away from us at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. You're not defending that. You've got nothing more to add. So sit down, shut up, don't reply. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Oh, you moved on from that really quickly, didn't you?
He doesn't like the rules I make here, do you? Last chance. Shut up or I'll kick you out. My rules. Shut up. You have nothing. Distance to the sun. Any evidence thereof?
It's over there. But not the distance.
No distance proof.
I want to talk about Earth rotation more.
Okay, go on then. No worries. Okay.
Oh, I was just calling you bluff there. You didn't kick me.
So you're a liar. You don't want to talk about Earth's rotation. You are, in fact, a liar.
Yeah, that was a test. You failed.
A test. You're testing me. Get out. You're not here to test me, especially when you lie about having evidence for something that is claimed to happen and does not. And you don't respond to anything other than criticise a piece of verbiage. Pathetic.
This is the best they got.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, none whatsoever.
No,
Purification fallacy.
no, because I mean you can't actually scientifically validate a concept.
Any signs of pathetic globe head tactics?
Every day.
It's got worse since 2017. Progressively.
Seriously, it really has. This is terrible, Vacuum. And all you guys like him? What's wrong with you guys? This is the best you got.
Even the people
The
that
worst they got is the best they got.
even the people they think are defending the claim pass the buck. You summed it up beautifully yesterday when you talked about leapfrogging.
Me?
No, chocolate.
Oh, okay.
What did I say?
You've got Simon Dan saying you and your reference frames are ruined, and the only claim of reference frames is from the globe side, and they absolutely require them, so they definitely don't need them being ruined. We ask him, what the hell are you talking about? We don't have any. You mean you and your reference frames are ruined? Response from Dan. You don't know what diffraction is. Here's a debate of you on a neutral platform without what's claimed to be my only defense, the mute button, up against somebody who won't listen to a word I've said and constantly Fundy mutes me. That's Conspiracy Cats. So the subject on the table from Dan in response to whose reference frames are ruined is you don't understand diffraction. So we move on to Conspiracy Cats. Conspiracy Cats labours the point that I don't understand diffraction. I say, okay, let's talk about diffraction. What's diffraction? Why is this reduction in angular size to a limited point not included when you compare to optical images with Earth curve geometry and orthographic view, actual sizes that don't change with distance? That's diffraction. Let's talk about it. What's the response? Oh, Anthony has juxtaposed gravity not being a force, but you can think about it being a force, with Conspiracy Cats not being a paedophile, but you can think about him being a paedophile. So that juxtaposition is what he wants to talk about. So it's like, why not actually talk about the thing you've brought up? You've brought up diffraction. Far from me suddenly going, oh no, they've caught me out. I'm going, yeah, let's talk about it. The fact that I've detailed it for about 3 straight years prior to that discussion with Conspiracy Cats, with his Fundy mute button in full effect, not willing to listen to a fairly elongated description of the Rayleigh criterion and the diffraction limit at the horizon, the point where things vanish, which requires a lengthy explanation. Given that it would give me about 6 seconds before it'd interrupt me, I gave up. But I still definitely do want to talk about diffraction. And so that's where we're at. Conspiracy Cats has brought up diffraction. I want to talk about it. Are we going to talk about it, or are we going to talk about Anthony and some personal issue he's got that he's protesting far too much about, in my honest opinion? Nevertheless, his protestations about this particular situation with Anthony are irrelevant to the fact he has brought up diffraction, and I now absolutely want to talk about it. Leapfrogging. Pass the buck. Move the reference frame.
Pretty much. Well, they have to leave it at that, right? They somehow in their mind have convinced themselves that they've got some sort of a win. So why talk about it more and actually give themselves a real loss? So just keep the illusion of the win, keep the discussion out of actually happening, right? And then, yeah, you can just proceed to do that forever and ever and ever. See how long that lasts. Why risk actually having the talk that you want to have?
Exactly.
They do that with the lockstep too. They'll say the atmosphere moves lockstep with the Earth's rotation, and then you say, well, then we shouldn't see any deviation. Oh yeah, but the bullet's moving really fast, so we do. Well, how about the football? Is that going as fast as the bullet or a pendulum? Because you say it happens with that too.
Yeah, they're just going to jump back and forth between yes, we should have, and no, we shouldn't have. 15 degrees an hour drift as Earth turns underneath. Moving on. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Nope.
Nah.
Well, in their mind, just talking about it over a sandwich, listening to iTunes, looking at a computer screen with digital photography is enough.
Is that what they call science in 2020?
Yeah, that is what they call science in 2020. They being the pseudoscientists that don't adhere to the scientific method, like Dr. Becky in that example. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Axial.
Yeah, that's tough.
Can't stop. Geometric horizon has no physicality anymore. And then you try to invoke the R that you just lost to save the R that you just lost. It's great.
Well, every real argument they have, ironically, just presupposes R every time. Whatever excuse they bring up, whatever machination they bring forth, you can almost recognize it by it assuming R in its mechanism.
Indeed.
Like terrestrial refraction.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Impossible.
It would be an interesting thing to test, if that would be possible.
You could pour bouncy balls into a fish tank like Thunderfoot did and assert that gas, which is unbonded and moves at high speeds in all directions, actually goes down, go boom boom like solid bonded bouncy balls. Of course, you would end up being utilised from that day till forever as a clown who doesn't understand how gas behaves. Humiliating, considering he's claimed to be a PhD. You'd think he'd know how gas behaves. Thunderfoot is a clown.
Or you could always take some butane out of one container, feed it into a tube, which is another container, create a pressure gradient, and then say how you use no containers to do that. Because that seems legit.
Right. And did you know that he's actually using 3 containers in the demonstration?
What's the third?
It's the one he's in, and we're all in.
Yeah, but good point. Good point. Where did he get the gas pressure from in the first place? That's the point of the question, right? If you're going to assert that you can create gas pressure differentials in some form or other, where'd you get the gas pressure from? Because the whole argument is if the sky is a vacuum, then the gas we breathe would fill the space. We would have no gas pressure, but yet they start with gas pressure. Well, we've got it. Yeah, we know we've got it. How have we got it if the sky is a vacuum? Well, we can have a gradient. Who cares? Where'd you get the gas pressure from in the first place? Spot on, Arwin.
Yep.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
PP waves.
I think that one of the ballers should just go on a quest to find it. Would you guys say?
Yeah, they should all have a little gathering, gather up the dwarfs and the other freaks, and decide who's going to go to the centre of Middle Earth.
Yes.
Maybe to
Sorta.
return a ring or something.
Never heard this one. Volcanoes.
I have indeed heard of volcanoes.
Well, wouldn't it
Maybe
be
that's
fascinating if
an
they
example.
could create a device, like a transport device, where they could actually travel through a volcano, like swim in it, and then just explore how deep the lava goes in those things? Wouldn't that be fascinating?
You'd need unobtainium or adamantium or something of that nature.
Or, I don't know, carbide tungsten plating?
Wait,
I don't know.
We can create a tin can that we could send out in like the late 70s that could survive the vacuum of space. Is now in the outer reaches of the solar system. We can create that, but we can't get something to go down even 10 miles. That's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, just stories, eh?
I don't know.
It's a good story.
Well, even in their paradigm, volcanoes are a result of tectonic shifts and the plates rubbing together, creating friction, and has nothing to do with the center of the Earth. So I don't even know why they say that.
Correct. It's people who just assume that their basic knowledge of their geography class in 4th grade, where they showed a picture of it and described it, suddenly meant that volcanoes came from there, not paying attention to the bit where they described the Ring of Fire and how they claim there's a tectonic plate ring with all the volcanoes located at the edges of it where they rub together. Precisely correct according to their rhetoric. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know, but that's what they claim. Nothing to do with the molten iron core, in other words.
You have
Exactly.
a tectonic plate on a ball.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
A broken.
So all these plates are basically sort of liquid, or do they all happen to be perfectly spherical shaped and they've solidified in that spherical shape? That would have a lot of consequences for the way they're going to drift on this ball.
You're asking far too many questions. Plates on a ball. That's it.
Those would be tectonic bowls.
Well, it would be like the Humpty Dumpty theory, basically, right? Broken egg shell.
No.
That's a scientific theory.
How do the broken egg shells shift on the broken egg? That's
Look, they just do all right.
Tectonic plates on the ball. I think we're off tangent here. Maybe we can move on.
Well, that's it. If that's the end of that conversation, that concludes housekeeping.
Can we go back to Coriolis for a second? I just wanted to see if I can screen share something real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh crap. Oh.
While he's doing that, I may trim out the bit with the virus, as is on the panel at the moment. So it was show 1272 and 1274. There was like a 2-part discussion about Coriolis. I'm tempted to trim it out. I've been umming and ahhing about it for about a week.
Yeah, please do.
Is that what he's...
I'm ready when you are, Chris.
Yeah. Can you see it?
Yeah.
What I'm sharing, screen sharing.
Yeah.
So that I don't know who that guy is. I know he comes on the panel a lot in trolls, especially recently. But he was saying something around like, "Oh, well, you're mixing projectiles with powered flight." So I've never heard a good answer for the difference between why a projectile would experience supposed Earth-based Coriolis and a powered flight wouldn't. But essentially, what I have heard, or what I do understand, is they'll say, "Oh, well, because powered flight, you can move in any direction you want. Therefore, you know, you can account for this supposed Coriolis." even though we all know that you're just flying to where you need to go, and you're not doing anything like that. If you ask a pilot, they don't take Coriolis or curve or spin or anything into account. And so what you can do is, and I've done this in the past just to check, right? Because I was like, well, this is interesting to see what this would look like as far as a flight path goes. Now this is a flight path from Kansas City to Houston. Now you're just I couldn't get the blue line off. It's driving, so you'll have to ignore that. But the flight path is the red line, right? It's a direct shot from Kansas City to Houston. Now it's due south and just barely slightly to the west. Okay, to let me see, to this side, like right now. I'm exaggerating it, but that's the direction. Is slightly to the west. That's a major problem for the globe model. The globe model says that the Earth goes from west to east this way, correct? To account for Coriolis, you have to, if you're in an airplane and you're a pilot, you have to fly to this point and land here, because the Earth is spinning underneath you this direction. So first of all, flying due south where the red line is wrong, and it has a slight westward direction, which would mean you were, I'm just speculating, miles and miles and miles past you. The Earth has moved miles past your landing destination of Houston. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. There's no way around it. You would have to fly with an easterly trajectory, because the Earth is spinning underneath you. Not only that, but coming from Kansas City to Houston on their supposed model, you've got, I'm just making numbers up, 500 mile per hour speed here, and you've got, again, making stuff up, 600 here. So the Earth is spinning faster, supposedly, underneath you the further south you go, but you're still flying in a straight line to your destination. It falls apart on its face.
It does, but you're slightly inaccurate in your terminology. I'm really sorry to do this, but I am going to correct you because it's important, and I'm hopefully going to rewire your cognition as I do so, because there's a misapprehension in terms of what can or cannot be accounted for when it comes to specifically Coriolis. So in what you said, if you just said Coriolis cause, everything you just said would have been accurate, but you said Coriolis effect. Now, what is the Coriolis effect? It's only observable from the spinning reference frame, Chris. So when you say a plane could, should, or would account for Coriolis effect, that is an incorrect assertion and an impossibility, and I'll explain why. If you have Coriolis effect, and we'll forget your plane for a minute, we'll use a roundabout and a drone. So the drone is hovering above a roundabout you're on, and you're watching the drone seem to come towards you as you rotate towards the drone hovering. You with me so far, Chris?
Yes.
Well, that is an observational based effect, and can only be observed if you, the observer, are on something spinning. So in this example, when you say the plane is accounting for the Coriolis effect, that would require the following. A call from ground control to the plane to say, excuse me, flight 337, you have a man on the ground observing you seem to drift. Please can you correct your path so that it seems to be a straight path from his vantage point? Do you see where I'm going?
No, I do. I know what you're saying, and I agree with you. If you want to use exact terminology, you're correct, and I'm incorrect.
But
so
it's
you're
not that
right.
you're incorrect. No.
Coriolis...
You're not incorrect. You just, when you say Earth would be rotating towards the east under this plane, that would be a cause of the Coriolis effect they claim we see from the ground. So they claim from the ground, you'll look up at this plane and see it seeming to curve as you move towards it on a rotating Earth. That's Coriolis effect. The plane, on the other hand, and its path, its trajectory, is irrelevant of Coriolis effect, because the only effect to be observed is you moving towards it, and that's got nothing to do with its path, only to do with you moving towards it as you rotate underneath it. That's why it's a not actual drift. So if the hovering drone, for the sake of argument, was east of you, and you launched it Well, as you rotated or are claimed to rotate on a globe Earth underneath it, you'd eventually, if it was lay a foot and a half off the ground, you'd eventually smack into it because you rotated underneath it towards it. Yeah? Now that's a real effect of you smacking into it because you're rotating towards it. Now let's change the example. Let's say that the drone is doing loop-de-loops between 1 foot and 3 foot off the ground. Just for the sake of this example, let's pretend it can do an aerobatic maneuver within 2 feet, just for the sake of example. So it's spinning around doing loop-de-loops east of you. And the same exact thing is claimed to happen. You're supposed to be turning towards it. Now, will it change the fact that as you rotate towards it, you're going to hit it? Whether or not it's doing loop-de-loops or not? No. Now, if it's got a path, and it's flying north as you're travelling towards it, then it might be that you intersect its path as you rotate towards it. In other words, you still collide with it. It might be that you have a near miss. But its straight path past you has nothing to do with the observation of it coming towards you, when in reality it's taking a straight path. That's only observational and only from a spinning platform. Therefore, the target, the thing described as in the inertial reference frame, its path is basically irrelevant. It's only an observation from you seeing something seem to do something as you rotate towards it. So when you're with my Earth turning and around as a roundabout would, and you've got your drone doing loop-de-loops, and you're rotating towards it, about to crash into it, in that example, it literally makes absolutely no difference what the path of the drone is. All that matters is that to see the effect, you're moving towards it. So the drone doesn't have to account for the fact that you're coming towards it while it's doing loop-de-loops, and it can't see it either. Because from its point of view, it's just where it is doing what it's doing while something's rotating underneath it. Now that is a claim that Globe Earth makes. Globe Earth claims we rotate underneath stuff to see it seem to drift at 15 degrees an hour. Now the crucial bit is that we have to see stuff drifting away or drifting towards us at a rate of 15 degrees an hour, and it doesn't happen. We don't see anything, in this example a plane, coming towards us or seeming to take a curved path because we're moving towards it while it's in the air. We're never moving towards anything rotating underneath it at 15 degrees an hour, and when we point that out, all we get is a justification for why we don't see drift, when it's claimed we should have it on a turning Earth. 15 degrees an hour as we turn underneath is their claim that we don't observe. We're never drifting towards or away from anything ever. On a claim to be turning Earth, we're not turning, we're stationary. But thank you. Other than that, Chris, perfect. Just next time, Coriolis causes. I'm being pedantic because it's important, because if you don't understand the distinction, you can spend all day arguing about what would or wouldn't happen in regards to Coriolis with the path, that's the actual path of the target. Well, it's a not actual effect. A not actual deflection. It's seeming like it's doing something when it's not doing something. Well, that's nothing to do with its actual path, which is what you're detailing. Now, the actual path would be affected by the cause of Coriolis, because the cause of Coriolis is Earth turning underneath that plane. And they claim Earth turns under that plane at 15 degrees an hour. But that would mean that the plane would go off course, because Earth's turning underneath it at 15 degrees an hour, according to their claim, something that simply doesn't happen. And all they'll ever do is justify why it doesn't happen, when it should. So thank you very much, Chris. Perfect, other than causes rather than effects.
No problem. I just wanted this to be a clear rebuttal for those on the panel and watching to the claim that, only projectiles would experience the turn of the Earth underneath them, right? The physical turn underneath them. And that simply is false because of what I just outlined. And I know you get it, so I just want to make sure it's clear to everyone that the pilot would have to account and steer, quote unquote, the plane to the east in order to catch up supposedly with the city that they're flying to that's moving underneath them physically.
Precisely. Exactly correct. If Earth was turning underneath to give us Coriolis deviation observable from the ground, as things are moving towards us as we turn underneath them, observable and described as a Coriolis effect, then Earth's turning underneath planes. And they'd have to worry about that. Nothing to do with Coriolis effect, that's merely the observation from the ground of it seeming to do something it isn't. But if Earth's turning underneath a plane, then Earth's turning underneath a plane. And you can be damn sure they need to concern themselves with that, and they don't.
Can I bring up a second illustration for this? Is the Felix Baumgartner 24-mile jump, where he landed was 36 miles from his launch site, and his capsule, as I'm reading here, landed 54 miles away, so a little bit further for the capsule. But if Earth was turning underneath him, as stated by the ballers, at that location, it'd be at 745 miles per hour of Earth turn, and he should have been 1,864 miles to the west, somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. But that didn't happen because Earth is not turning under Felix Baumgartner.
Indeed.
Well,
There's been a couple of super chats and I've missed one of them. I'm hoping it's still scroll-upable to find. If not, I'll have to... Oh, here we go. I can't read it on this screen. Earth's moving at 66,000 miles per hour. Moves 254 miles, open brackets, can't read any of that. Something altitude in 14 seconds. Solar orbit. The ISS is moving at 17,130 miles per hour. Would be 30 minutes to get out of the way. Exclamation mark. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. I can't read your name. Begins with P. Thank you very much for the super chat. There was another one as well, which hopefully I can actually get on my other screen. So let's just do that now. I'll say a big thank you to... Bear with me 1 second. Zelleredden1. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Probably not. I've got level with you. Earth is flat, plain and simple. The gravity of the situation is unbelievable. Just trying to be straight forward with you. To broaden your horizon. We've been lied to. On a global scale. Epic, epic, epic. Thank you very much for the super chat. That was great.
My brother from another mother.
Yeah, I was going to say very 10th man-esque. Excellent.
Yeah, but I think I was trying to say with your Felix Baumgartner, I don't know if you saw that, I think it's a year or two ago, where a guy actually jumped out of a parachute, out of a plane without a parachute, into an actual target. How do you get that right if Earth is spinning? You have to be very...
Yeah, I saw that big netting that he jumped into. I saw that one.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have quite a lot of confidence knowing you're going to land in that net by jumping out of a plane. Well, if you think Earth is spinning away from you...
Did the guy jumping out of the airplane without a parachute, would he be considered powered flight?
Exactly my point. How?
Exactly.
That's what they want. They want you to argue about the projectile all day long. They want to argue about what's happening in the inertial reference frame, because then they can just assume that they've got Earth turning underneath and not having an effect because they're travelling together. In other words, a contradiction in terms. And they just bounce back and forth. That was how Chris opened up his time here, by pointing out exactly that. Somebody asserting Earth turns under a gyro at 15 degrees an hour. Second separate reference frame turning underneath. Coriolis deviation. There you go. Proof positive. Well, that means we've got Earth turning underneath. Bullets. Footballs. Drones. Helicopters. Aeroplanes. Anything not attached. And they go, no, we wouldn't expect to see 15 degrees an hour. It's like, you've just made that claim, you stupid fool.
Well, if Earth and atmosphere were lockstep, why did Felix Baumgartner just not land where he took off from?
We do have wind.
Oh, but they discount that.
Well, yeah, their assertion, which violates the first law of thermodynamics, is also debunked much more simplistically by pointing out that we have multiple directions of surface winds. Flying in the face of that claim, which isn't their claim anyway. Their claim is we see things drifting apart from us at 15 degrees an hour as Earth turns underneath to give us Coriolis effect. That's their actual claim. So debunking this notion of Earth and atmosphere travelling together is just, why bother arguing about it? Just say no drift then. So no 15 degrees an hour, so stuff isn't drifting away from me. They go, no, I assume Earth's travelling with the atmosphere. I don't care what you assume, you're supposed to have drift.
So there's a quick look at the live chat, and there's a guy named Virus who says he handles the panel quite well in our mistaken knowledge of Coriolis effect and the conservation of momentum.
I think it's because I mentioned earlier I'm going to trim out this
all
bit.
About it.
I'm going to trim out that bit. So we've already had that conversation at length over the course of 2 shows with Virus and the after shows. most people won't have seen them. Subscribe today to my second channel, Nathan Oakley. Link in the info box, where these uncut and after shows typically go out. But that show, I am going to do it, Boris. I'm going to trim it out. I might do it this afternoon. Both of them. I'll do a part 1 and a part 2. And the audience will see exactly. Go on, Flatsword.
Hopefully Virus will come back sometime and tell me if his tea gets cold or not. I'm still waiting. It's been a week.
Is that Virus?
No, that's Vacuum.
I'm going to say that was someone else.
Oh, that's Vacuum.
Yeah, that's someone else.
Well, maybe Virus's knowledge has grown since that last conversation, and I think he's in the Discord, so maybe he wants to tell us all about it, buddy.
Well, the problem about talking in a vacuum is, nobody hears you.
Yeah, there's no natural vacuums. Hold on, let's just Chocolate wants a pop at Virus. Let's just see if he's willing. No, he's not willing. Clearly not. He's too busy in the chat. But Chocolate, you'll have to debate him in there. He's not obviously on the show, but not willing to talk to you.
Check your DMs, Chocolate.
Stick with a format that gives him plenty of time to think about the response.
No, I don't think text.
Yeah, keyboard warriors.
I think it's because typically they do want to wait till the after show if they're going to debate at all, because they know it's going to reach a more limited audience. Again, subscribe today to my second channel, link in the info box. But if it goes out in the after show, they're less likely to have more people watching. What is there, 160 odd people watching right now? That's a fair few people to embarrass yourself in front of.
Yeah, unless you...
I was just wondering because, he's in the chat saying he handles the panel quite well. That made me smile. So that's cool. I like the confidence.
Brave soul.
So let's talk about reference frames here in the few minutes we got left. They turned that argument around saying that we don't believe in reference frames when that's not what we're saying. We're saying that the use of them and their reference frames to prove Earth turning doesn't work. There are reference frames.
Yes, there are in existence frames of reference.
We don't believe in the reference frames that supposedly are ours that have been ruined. We don't believe in those.
You don't understand diffraction.
Right. We only got celestial reference frames. Light-based.
Pressure gradient.
Go on, Owen.
Big Bang!
Go on, Owen.
Let's just go all over the place, man. Why not?
Go on, go.
I'm serious. The stars rotate or appear to rotate. It's light. That's really all it seems to be. So we have celestial or light-based reference frames, just not physical-based reference frames. So,
just not Earth turning underneath.
Right, or anything actually physically turning at all, anywhere.
Listen, I'll use my man Ed as my citation. The rotation of Earth is irrelevant to the movement of the sun.
With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley second channel, subscribe today. Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!